Today we're going to be going over some details about doing preventative maintenance for evaporator coils, and also on this particular unit we utilize a hot water system called Rackliffe, which also utilizes a hot water coil. And it's very important that during the PM process that this hot water coil is also cleaned when in conjunction with the evaporator coil. It's actually not that difficult to do, but the benefits are long-term and can prevent high costs of replacements and things of that nature down the road. What I'd first like to do is I like to inspect everything just using a common flashlight. I want to check out my evaporator coil, which I can see definitely needs to be cleaned. It has debris that's lodged in between the fins, which will loosen easily if you dry brush it first, and then use any type of common, like a foaming coil cleaner that you would spray directly on there, and the foam action will take the product or any dirt and everything and move it out to where it can be much more easily removed. Also, another thing I want to do is I want to look at the actual blower assembly. The blower assembly is critical for air circulation and distribution into the apartment. If you have not enough airflow, obviously, that diminishes the efficiency of the heating and or cooling. On this particular system, like I mentioned, we use an aquatherm system. It's basically where the hot water heater is utilized as a furnace, and the hot water will be circulated through this upper coil, as you see right here. And there's an actual circulating pump which helps kind of facilitate it through the coil, and it'll basically run through a heat loop system which will go back down into the water heater, and the process starts all over. So what I want to do is just manually inspect all these components. Like I said, the evaporator coil definitely needs to be cleaned. So preventive maintenance is just not replacing a filter. Here we utilize a 16 by 20 by 1 inch. It's not just replacing the filter. You must go into much more detail, make sure everything is clean, because again, it will increase the efficiency of the system. So by looking at the blower assembly, we want to make sure our squirrel cage, the fins are clean, because again, if the fins are inundated with dirt, it will lessen the efficiency of air distribution into the apartment. We'll get a number of requests from our residents where we have poor air circulation, the apartment's not cooling rapidly enough, it's not heating fast enough. Usually when we have service requests of that nature, we'll go directly to it and look at the blower. Because over time, it does cake up depending on if the people, a lot of things contribute to it getting dirty more rapidly with grease in the air, because all the air is drawn in specifically at this point. So again, I want to inspect this. And also when I get done inspecting this, I like to make sure all the wiring and everything's intact, nothing's loose, everything's intact here. Basically look at the electronics. Another thing too is you might want to turn the dedicated power switch off before you go touching anything, just to make sure that no line voltage is live. Obviously, if the line voltage is off here, this is safe to handle and work on any part replacements, or if you just need to double check wiring. Then lastly, I want to look at the heat coil. Now the heat coil is very important, obviously. There's a dedicated bleeder right here. So in certain circumstances, like let's say if we had to replace a hot water heater, in most cases, even if you do bleed out your hot water line once you replace the water heater, you're still going to have air in that system. So what we also do for preventive maintenance is we will take a hose with a bucket and bleed out here at the bleeder, make sure there's no residual air in that line. So that way there we know that the air is out, the system is free to run through, there'll be no obstructions, no blockages. And also again, we want to look at to see if the actual coil needs to be cleaned, because again, the air passes through the evaporator coil, gets drawn up through the blower, and has to pass through the heat coil. So obviously if this is very dirty, again, that will minimize the efficiency of the whole heating and cooling system. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of like describe exactly what I would do. First of all, with the system off, I inspect the coil. I'm going to basically take a soft bristle brush and I like to brush the coil off first to make sure I loosen any dirt on the surface of the coil, thus allowing the foaming coil cleaner to get in much deeper. Just using a flashlight, just want to kind of look and see how I'm working this. I don't like utilizing hard bristle brushes. I believe that the fins on these coils, especially as they age, become more fragile. So you want to be very careful as to how much pressure you put on these to make sure that you don't fold the fins down, that the channels remain open. So I prefer to use a soft, small bristle brush where I can get right in here, right to the bottom of the slant coil and work this dirt out. Very important. So with most of the dirt removed, I can now apply a foaming coil cleaner, which I would basically spray on the coil. And this is basically a non-rinse coil cleaner, so I don't need to actually use water to rinse it. I actually like to rinse my coils after they're cleaned. I just feel that it's a much better process of anything that has any type of coil cleaner, I believe should be rinsed. Okay, I would spray that on there, let that sit on there, kind of force the dirt out. Then once the coil is cleaned, I'm going to rinse it. I have a small little pump sprayer rinser that I utilize that would just spray on there, basically spray into the fins, clean the coil, let everything work its way down into the condensate pan. Then at that point, I would check to make sure that the condensate pan is clear, that has no debris in it that would clog up the condensate line, which here is not bad at all. All I'd have to do is utilize my vacuum cleaner with my attachment that I would put on here to clean out the condensate pan. My next step, again, I've already inspected the blower assembly. I'm looking at it, it looks very clean. I don't have to do anything with this. I've inspected the wiring looks good, everything's intact. My next thing is the heat coil. I can notice there's some dirt on the fins there. I have a special little tool that allows me access to reach into there as far back because my hands obviously can't reach back into these tight spaces. And basically all I want to do is work this bristle across this coil to loosen up any surface dirt and dust that accumulates on this. And just using my flashlight, I can see by doing this, I don't have to disassemble anything, which is going to save me time. And again, I can actually use the coil cleaner on this, as much of the areas after I brush all this off, I can actually use my attachment of my vacuum again to put up in here to vacuum all this loose dirt out. Okay, so once I've completed that, I make sure everything's vacuumed up, everything is clean. I also like to wipe off over here. We have a grill, the outer cover grill, which I like to inspect as well to make sure any dust or anything that can be sucked in back onto the coil, I'm going to clean off with my vacuum cleaner and or using a brush. And of course, the last step in the process, after everything is cleaned, is I want to put a fresh filter in. This is a 30-day filter. Depending on the use of the system, you're normally going to get at least 30 days out of the filter. Possibly 60 days. It could be 45 days. It all depends. So, wrapping up, I just want to close out on this presentation of doing preventive maintenance on a evaporator / aquatherm system. Thank you for your time.